All right, let's talk about one of the biggest calls a data engineer has to make: choosing your data infrastructure. Get it right, and you're all set for global scale. Get it wrong? Well, you could be looking at massive costs and some really serious legal hurdles. Today, we're going to demystify the choice between local, cloud, and distributed systems.
So put yourself in this situation for a second. Your app is a runaway success. I mean, it is blowing up. Now you've got to take it global. So where do you actually build its brain? Where does all the data live and the processing happen? This isn't just a technical question. It's a huge strategic one with massive financial and legal consequences.
To make this all feel a bit more real, we're going to use a case study. So let's imagine you work for Hungry Now, a food delivery company. They've just decided to expand into the UK, France, and Germany. For the data engineering team, this is a huge challenge. You need to build a customer order system that's fast, reliable, and, this is key, legally compliant across all three of those countries.
So, as the engineer on this project, you're basically standing at a crossroads. There are three fundamental paths you can take, and each one has its own set of really powerful pros and some pretty serious cons. So what are they?
First up is the traditional approach: local, or on-premise. This means you buy the servers, you physically rack them in a data center that you control, and you are responsible for literally everything, from the power plugs all the way up to the firewall. The big win here: you have ultimate physical control over your gear.
The second path is the one that probably sounds pretty familiar: the cloud. With providers like Azure or AWS, you're not buying hardware, you're just renting it. The name of the game here is flexibility. You pay for what you use, and you let somebody else handle all the physical maintenance.
And the third option is a distributed system. This one is all about being smart about where you put your resources. So instead of one central brain, you might use multiple cloud regions, say one in Germany and one in France. You could even do a mix of cloud and local servers to get the best of both worlds.
Okay, now that we know the paths, we have to navigate what I like to call the gauntlet of trade-offs. There is no single best answer here, just the answer that's best for Hungry Now's specific needs. So let's figure out how we make that choice.
To do this systematically, we're going to evaluate each option against 5 critical criteria: security, cost, scalability, compliance, and the overall strategic fit with the company's goals. Having a framework like this keeps the decision grounded in business reality, not just tech preferences.
So this table really lays out the core tensions. Look at local. It gives you that ultimate physical control, but scalability becomes a huge headache. The cloud, on the other hand, offers incredible scalability, but now you're sharing security responsibility with your provider. That means you need super tight controls, like identity and access management, or IAM. And a distributed system? It's perfect for regional compliance, but all that complexity can actually increase your security risks. See? There's no perfect answer here. Every choice is a trade-off. Let's dig into one of the biggest trade-offs: cost. With a local setup, you have massive capital expenditure, or CapEx. You're buying all that expensive hardware right up front. With the cloud, it's all operating expenditure, or OpEx. It's more like a predictable ongoing bill. This fundamentally changes how a company has to budget for its technology.
Now, let's talk about compliance. Why is it so important for Hungry Now? Well, because getting it wrong has some serious consequences. For a major GDPR violation, the maximum fine is 20 million euros, or 4% of your company's global annual revenue, whichever one is higher. I mean, that is a business-ending number. And GDPR isn't the only rulebook. Since Hungry Now processes payments, they have to follow PCI DSS for credit card data. Then there are international standards like ISO 27001, and this really important concept called data sovereignty, which is exactly what it sounds like. Some countries have laws that require their citizens' data to stay physically within their borders. Okay, we've got the options, we've got the criteria. Now it is time to make the call. Let's walk through the exact process for making a smart, evidence-backed decision for Hungry Now. A smart decision always follows a clear process. First, you define your non-negotiables. You need low latency for a good user experience, strict compliance with data laws, and the ability to scale. Then you use our 5-point framework to evaluate the options. You analyze the risks of each, and then, finally, you make a recommendation you can actually justify.
So the verdict is in. For Hungry Now, the best choice is a distributed architecture, specifically using a cloud provider like Azure to create regional nodes in Germany, France, and the UK. This directly solves the data sovereignty problem for GDPR by keeping user data in country
and it dramatically reduces latency, which makes the app feel a whole lot faster for everyone.
But listen, making the right technical call is really only half the battle. As an engineer, you also have to be able to articulate why you made that decision. This is how you demonstrate that senior-level thinking and prove your strategic value to the business.
Just notice the framing here. This statement goes way beyond "I built a thing." It says, "I understood the business problem, I evaluated the options, and I chose a solution that aligned with our core strategic needs." That is the language of impact, and it's exactly what you want in your portfolio or your next performance review.
And to back up that strategic statement, you can point to the specific tools that would bring it to life, mentioning Kubernetes for orchestration, Terraform for infrastructure as code, and enforcing compliance with something like Azure Policy. Plus, using strong identity and access management and role-based access control, or IAM/RBAC, this shows you have the real hands-on skills to actually implement the vision.
And that really brings us to the end. The choice of infrastructure is never simple. It's a really complex puzzle of cost, security, performance, and law. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What's the biggest infrastructure trade-off you've ever had to make in your own work? I'm genuinely curious to know.